Hi, I'm Heather Campbell, and I'm an Inuit artist originally from Nunatsiavut, which is in northern Labrador. So my community is Rigolette, but I've been living here in Ottawa for 19 years. I can't believe it. But today we're here for the Symposium, which is within the Summer Solstice Aboriginal Festival here in Ottawa. So 2016, it's actually the 20th anniversary of the festival, and I think this is the third time that we've done this symposium. So it's about Inuit artists within contemporary life and how we sort of meld these two lives of sort of traditional knowledge and how we're living today. So I'm going to get the artists here to introduce ourselves, and we've actually got some connections here as well. We work together sort of with the Inuit Art Foundation and the Inuit Art Center as well, so we'll kind of touch on that too.
Hi, I'm Barry Pottle. I'm originally from the Nunatsiavut in Labrador as well, from Ridley as well. I've been in Ottawa longer than Heather, probably 30 years now, so I really consider myself an urban Inuit these days. I mean, I've been out of the Nunatsiavut for a very long time, so I'm trying to focus, my work focuses on urban Inuit here in Ottawa, and so that's my main theme, and I want to try and build up on that and develop not only a market for photography, what I call contemporary urban Inuit art photography, but a genre within Inuit art as well. So that's what I'm trying to do, and my art reflects that.
Hello, Henry Cudlec here, originally from Coral Harbour in Nunavut. I've been in Ottawa for 22 years now. Worked at the Inuit Art Foundation, watched many great artists work at their craft, and I learned by watching many of the artists. So I owe a lot of the skills I have for carving today for the Inuit Art Foundation board members, and also it was a part of our curriculum one year in our elementary school, carving, and that's how I first introduced to it. And my grandpa was a carver. He was a miniature harpoon maker, and that's where I got interested in carving. And I love what I do. I love making artwork, and it keeps me connected to my culture and trying to keep our culture out there and people knowing our art and our culture through art. So that's what I try and do in the artwork I do.
Hi, my name is Norman Igupeli. I grew up in an isolated community called Albriet, and I've been doing art since elementary school. It was my favorite subject. And I do pencil sketching, and I'm learning with colors. And right now I'm creating a Inuit superhero comic book. I sort of related to my growing up. Everyone have a life story. You know, anyone can be creative. You don't have to be an artist to make something come real. So that's my little encouragement. And what I'm making is sort of related to my grandfather. He was someone I look up to growing up. So I kind of characterize my book to dedicated to him, because he was a local blind man, but a carver, woodworking carver. So I sort of make my book mix with my own imagination and a little bit with my grandfather, and there's a little bit of shamanism in my book, because my grandfather was one of them. So right now I'm sort of finishing the book, but there's no words. I keep changing the words, so I have to stop changing. So 1 minute it's like a word looks very encouraging, then I go through it again, I'll change it. But anyways, any book can have a character name, so I come up with something that catching towards kids, related to kids. I call it Nanook Man the Hunter. So I'm going to make the story very short. It started off as a young boy with a polar bear cub, but the cub was an orphan, so that these two grew up playing together. But the kid was told by the parents to take the cub with skills, like command and discipline, and now it's just like to the point they're grown up, but they're hunting together. So that's my short little brief. I don't want to say it too much, otherwise you will have my book in the video. But you have to wait till it comes out. So when it comes out, I'm going to donate some towards children's school, but young ones, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
I don't know, my mind is still going back to sort of the first time that we talked about sort of urban Inuit artists when we worked at the Inuit Art Center with the Inuit Art Foundation, and sort of the more practical things that go along with being an Inuit artist here in an urban center. We don't have that co-op system, we don't have the support for marketing and promotion, so most of us are pretty much doing a lot of this on our own. So there's that aspect of it. But there's also that aspect of being within our own community and interacting with everyone else in the Ottawa community. So you're always yourself, but I think you always have a sense that you're a representative of your people at the same time, especially when we're at an event like this. So when you're making your art, you have two groups of people in mind. You want to be able to connect with your own Inuit community, but you also want to bridge that gap with, the greater Ottawa area and different cultures. We have so many people that are moving here to Canada now. We have people that are immigrating, and we want to make sure that they know the history of Inuit and our place within Canada.
To me, the history of Inuit and Aboriginal people in Canada is not really widely known, and I think through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendation that Canadians learn about our history, I think that'll start to make people appreciate Aboriginal people. As it is now, it's not really in the past. Our history is not really in Canadian history, and I think once our history is known, I think things will start to improve for Aboriginal people. That's my hope, and because as it is now, it's not a very good situation for Aboriginal people in Canada. So I'm hoping that things will begin to change through education and people knowing about our history, because we're not in Canadian history books as it is now. We're starting to be there through residential school experience and all that being in curriculum, but it's not quite there yet, our full history. And I think once the history is better known by Canadians, I think things will start to improve for Aboriginal people. And our artwork is a way to express who we are and where we come from. And I think Inuit art itself has received great promotion in Canada, and I think that really helped bring the profile of Inuit artists, and that's been very helpful. And I hope it will continue to grow. People are starting to take more pride in their culture and who they are. Not too long ago, we were taught to be ashamed of who we were, our parents' generation. And for me, I'm not going to be ashamed of who I am. I'm going to take pride in who I am. No one's going to put me down or make me ashamed of who I am. So I try and say, like you said, I try and represent who the Inuit are in the best way possible, and so that people appreciate who we are, and maybe there'll be better understanding and better outcome for Inuit at the end, and for overall Aboriginal people at the end, because as it is now, it's not a very good situation to be a Canadian Aboriginal in Canada, and we're starting to get there, and but there's still work needs to be done, and our art is a way to express who we are and where we come from.
It's interesting because Henry talks about the history, and my own personal experiences growing up, like Henry said, our parents were made to feel ashamed of who we are and whatnot. And it did affect me growing up, because growing up in Labrador, I left Riglet when I was really, really young, and I spent most of my time in Half Valley Goose Bay. But that's a very cosmopolitan town, if you want to say. If you would compare, say, Henry's hometown with us, and Nunavik, and not so much the Western Arctic, but that history of colonization and assimilation has I think, a lot more of an effect and effects on us in Labrador growing up and trying to figure out who we are, where we come from, our cultural practices and whatnot. I think for me personally, I'm trying to reclaim some of that, like especially drumming and language and whatnot. And Henry talked about history. Yeah, we don't have much of a voice within Canadian history, schools, publics, and texts. And even less, I think, with urban Inuit. I mean, urban Inuit is relatively new. If you look at First Nations and Métis, I mean, we essentially came south 40, 50 years ago. But if you look at the history of Inuit way back, and you look at some of the things that happened, especially in Labrador, the Inuit, who were part of these, what you call zoos, human zoos, going over in Europe and whatnot. And my friend Angus Anderson, who put it into really good context, he said these were, if you really think of it, these were the first urban Inuit. So we have a couple hundred years of a very limited history, but I take that and I look at it and I go, okay, how can I improve upon the voice? What can I say about urban Inuit? Because I am urban Inuit these days. I call myself urban Inuit. I'm very proud of it. I think we have to be proud of it and to show that there are Inuit living in urban centers. And we're talking 15,000 Inuit living throughout Canada in urban centers. So there is that history, there is that people, there is that community. And my work, I try to fuse my knowledge of what I know or don't know with contemporary life living in Ottawa. If you look at some of the works here, these are all done here in Ottawa, in the community here, whether it's at a feast or event, community event, celebrations. So I try and focus on that, and I try and give voice to that, and I try to reclaim some of my heritage and my history, my culture through those as well. And I think it's important that we recognize urban Inuit for who we are and how we maintain and thrive. Sometimes not thrive in the city. We have a lot of issues as well as everybody else. But there's a lot of us doing really good, I think, successful work and successful endeavors and living in a city such as Ottawa. This is not our home. I mean, we have to recognize the Algonquin territory. We have to recognize that. We are visitors here. So I recognize that and respect that. And throughout my travels in the Ottawa Valley, I look at where I'm going, what I see, and try and capture some of those images, not only if there's some kind of Inuit influence there, but as well as Algonquin or the other indigenous groups here in this area, right? So I try and fuse that. I mean, there's a saying, it's called living between two worlds, and it's a struggle with especially the youth and identity. You talked about identity, trying to live within that, trying to capture and acknowledge your history, practice it, and then try and live it in contemporary life. So that living between two worlds is a conflict. I try and live in these worlds. I try and look at that, live it in these worlds. And I think some of the stuff I do, try and launch that. So to me, there's really not a conflict per se. I know identity crisis a long time ago, yeah, who you are, we are. But I've been living in Ottawa so long that I can recognize that and respect it and be proud of it and try and promote that as well, especially to the youth. I mean, there's a lot of Inuit who were not born up north and who were adopted out and whatnot. And having that voice, that Inuit context, I think for me, tries to promote and promote that proudness and that what's the word I'm looking for? Just that feeling of belonging, I think.
When I do my art, I do a lot of pencil sketching, and I just do my own marketing. I go to organization or events like this, or any function related to gatherings. I'll just do my own thing. And with my art, I do more like traditional, what I know from where I'm growing up from. So that's pretty much it. And I was lucky enough to go to Vancouver Olympics for one of the artists selected from across Canada. And I was illustrator for Inuktitut magazine, and I've done 2 children's books through Ottawa Inuit Children's Center.
So
And yes,
before I forget, I think you and I are kind of in the same boat because we both do a lot of drawing and painting. And those aren't like traditional, or what we think of as stereotypical Inuit art.
yes.
So I'm thinking you probably have the same struggles as me when it comes to selling it because it's something so different.
Yes. I, well,
In terms of getting gallery recognition or, you know.
actually, I don't really do galleries. I'm happy enough doing my own thing. So I can't think of anything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think pricing has been a struggle for me. I've actually tried to do my own research. I've gone to the galleries here in Ottawa and in Montreal and trying to get a price because there was a time when I was doing giclée prints and no one else was doing giclée prints for Inuit art. It was all actual etchings and stone cuts and that kind of thing. So trying to go through and see, well, it's not a poster, but it's not an etching or a stone cut. Where do I fall within the world of sort of two-dimensional art? So it was a real struggle. It's still a struggle for me. And I experiment with things. So it's always a little bit different. Now I'm doing these watercolors that I draw on top with. And no one else is really doing the same thing. So how do
Here
I
you go, Heather.
compare my work?
There's your-
Yeah, there it is. So the Inuit Art Quarterly for, was it December, I think, something like that. But yes, that when you're doing something a little bit different, you don't have the same kind of guidelines for, well, how much should I price my work? Are people going to recognize this as Inuit art? Is it going to be accepted in either of those worlds? And I had like a real dilemma. I was supposed to go to, well, I did go to the Great Northern, the Labrador Creative Arts Festival in Goose Bay in November. And I just had like an existential crisis or something. And I ended up writing this long essay about that struggle of, are people going to accept this? Because not only is it sort of different materials, it's also a different way of making things, and the imagery, whatever, it's like I do an ink blot and then I look and see what I see in there. So sometimes it's Inuit stuff and sometimes it's not. So how are you going to categorize something that's, no one else is really doing? So I think I've made peace with it myself that when I'm creating, if I let my ego leave that space that I'm in, like that zone that I get in, then don't worry about it. Whatever needs to come through is going to come through. And if people like it, that's great. If they don't, well, okay, everyone has different tastes. But if I'm happy with it, then that's the most important part. Whether there's Inuit content in there or not, whether I think it's going to sell or not, that's not the point of making art. You make art for yourself first, and if someone else likes it, then that's great.
Yeah, not too long ago, Inuit art was not these big carvings that you see today. It used to be small amulets that people would make for themselves, and it would have a meaning for them. But through marketing of Inuit art in the 60s on, that Inuit art began to create bigger pieces. And before it was just a small amulet people used to make for themselves, either ivory or stone or a tooth of something, and that would be their artwork. And I think it was James Houston that kicked off Inuit art marketing to say they could make bigger things to market it. And for me, I'm a stone carver. I have that established sort of market of carvings or stone as recognized Inuit art. It's a little bit different for print and stuff like that. So I have that already out there, and I see what it could be a struggle trying to market yourself, because for me it's a struggle too, trying to market yourself and sell your stuff. You gotta find the buyer and you gotta find the gallery. It's not a established co-op you can just go visit and say you get your sale right there. So it's a very different market down here. You gotta find your own sort of niche and your own market. So it's not an established market area where you just sell your stuff. So each of us has to be a marketer, carver, and promoter of ourselves, and that's always a struggle trying to promote ourselves. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, it's very different for you, but it's also the marketing thing that everybody has to be their own marketer down there. So.
And even less so for photography. I mean, it's not a genre a recognized genre within Inuit art. So that's what I'm trying to do, trying to build that foundation. And it's been really good. It's been successful the last couple of years. People seem to resonate with it sometimes, other times no, and they really go, okay, is this art, or is this Inuit art, or whatnot. I'm self-trained, self-taught. I've read my manuals for my camera and whatnot, but to me it's about, I look at concepts. I'm very interested in concepts, conceptual ideas, conceptual art and whatnot, and I try and look in my community, in Ottawa, elsewhere, for those, either whether it's memories or whether it's cultural practices or whether it's not knowing them or knowing them. And I try and fuse those into what I'm trying to do with photography. A good example is the hats there, Nasex. The one on the left, Ottawa, was designed by my friend here in town, Louis, and the Montreal one was designed by somebody up in Inuit, which was a gift from my son. So I try and fuse those. These are Nasex. These are something that's identifiable with Inuit, and so I try and capture those within Inuit art using photography. And if you look at some of the other stuff up there, the food preparation, these are just what we do naturally, eat food and whatnot, and those sorts of things. So I try and capture that as well as celebrations such as the one over here with the young lady, Pam, that's celebrating Inuit Day here in Ottawa. So try and capture those things that's going on within the community, and that. I really take inspiration from other artists too, as Henry mentioned, really well-known artists that we actually had really access to. I mean, we're talking some of the greatest artists in Canada: Kanawak Ashawak, Putagu Kingnek, David Rubin, Token, Henry. We have a very small world that we can look at, we can meet and engage with and be inspired by. I mean, I take inspiration from, say, Henry's, his carving. I look at his detail. I try and look at that and try and capture the detail within my imagery. Norman's work is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not concepts, but the texture and whatnot. I look at that and go, oh, can I do this with photography? And Heather's work, especially Heather, I find very inspirational because it's new and exciting, and she's doing some new techniques. And she's been putting some imageries on Facebook when she's sketching on the bus, right? But those are things that I look at. I go, oh, how can I be inspired by that? How can I look at my work and try and figure out some next projects I want to work on, conceptually, expressionism, and just overall visually. What can I do? What can I do? And to me, it's about practice. It's practice about you taking my camera. I go and take pictures of everything, right? So this is how you get good at it, I think. I have a special niche, which is urban Inuit, so I have that niche that I can explore and develop and promote and hopefully add to the dialogue within the I think Indigenous and Aboriginal and urban context. So this is what I'm trying to do with the work that I'm doing. And the marketing, oh yeah, it's tough. A lot of rejection, but it's fun. I mean, okay, you don't want to. Somebody says no, okay, well try harder, try something different, go a different avenue, through a different context, through a different voice and whatnot, and try and work within those realms, I think. And gallery-wise, it's tricky. We always want to be in the galleries. I think that's financially one of the best things that could happen to us, be financially secure so we can do other artwork and so we can do and focus on our careers as artists. I'm 55 years old, so I'm called emerging, so I'm really old and emerging artist. So try and work in that context, but it's fun though, right? Try and recognize that, try and ground yourself where you're at, where you want to go, and that sort of stuff.
I'm really excited about it. I think it's the first time you've done that. I actually work for the festival just up until September. It's a summer project, a summer contract, and we're able to track all of the traffic that we get through Facebook and social media. And whenever I post anything about Inuit art, it just blows up. Like, it's so popular. People really want to see Inuit art. I think they want to understand sort of and educate themselves, I think, through art as well, because there is still kind of a vision, I think, of what Inuit are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it makes people very curious about this mysterious culture that's so far away. But we're all here too. We're amongst Ottawa. We've got a population of what? 2,000 or more. Every time I go downtown, I see somebody. So it's kind of neat that we have this space that's just our own, that we can really, have a voice, and we've got our beaders and our jewelry makers behind us as well. So it's really good, and it makes a sense of community too when we have more artists here, and we inspire each other, and it just feels like home when you come into this tent.
Having a pavilion in that powwow, it's really exciting that we're making our niche down here. We're starting to become known, and I think it's for Inuit artists, it could be inspiring that they have something to try and attain to and try and be a part of a pavilion that's Aboriginal. So I'm very happy to be part of it, and hopefully it continues, and hopefully more artists will continue to emerge through these festivals.
I think it's important on a couple of realms. Number one is some folks came up to me yesterday and asked me if I'm native or Aboriginal. I go, I'm Inuit. They go, that's the same as natives. I goes, no, it's totally different culture, totally different language. Some of the histories and social conditions were similar, but we have a separate language, separate culture, separate belief system, whatnot. So I think this venue allows us to do that, to express how different we are and some of the similarities that we encounter as well. And to say that we can stand on our own and be proud of who we are and try and promote that and trying to give voice to that. And this venue here is awesome for that. It has allowed us to be able to do that, to provide that voice and provide that visual context, and to add to the overall, I think, Indigenous, or whatever you want to call it, urban voice within not only Ottawa but nationally as well. So kudos to the organizers for this.
I enjoy coming here, and I feel being part of the community. So the community, we have to come together, not against each other. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bigger 10? No, just joking. The same thing, I think. I mean, we can. I don't know how you can improve upon this. I guess bigger tent or more artists or whatever. Also, we can learn. I think the artists here, I learned from them as well, so I can see what they're doing, see their practices, and try and be influenced that way as well. Not only my colleagues here, but the other individuals here, and see what they do, see how what creativity is going on, and maybe bring some more in. I know there's a Inuit tent over here for TI. They're doing stuff as well, so maybe we can somehow bridge that as well, because I think a bigger voice, a stronger voice would only enhance, I think, the overall richness of our culture and Ottawa itself as a city.
Air conditioning.
We can move up north.
A cooling station. I don't know.
Kiddie pool.
Kiddie pool, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.